What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development, and today I have a budget deck. One of my last things I want to feature, post-SIAC support, this is Rise to Full Height Paleozoic. If you're familiar with this deck, you might be a little bit of an older player like myself. This deck thrives in a very monster-heavy format, kind of like Pearly was, as well as Super Heavy Samurai. Of course, both of those decks got hit pretty hard on the ban list. Super Heavy Samurai not as much as Pearly, as I'm realizing now, but overall still a cool deck, definitely a neat little budget option. I take this out every now and then when my locals is a little bit lighter or we have some newer players and I want to test something a little bit more fun. I really enjoy this deck. If you've never taken this, it utilizes some really unique mechanics, and I think it's definitely pretty cool. So I'll give a shout out to all of my new subs, Alfion, Jose, Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, and Jose again. Thank you all so much for joining the channel. It really means a lot. Liking, subbing, commenting, all that type of engagement really does help the channel and helps the algorithm. Again, like I said, this is a bit of a budget build, close to about 145 bucks. Of course, the stupid price hike in ZEUS is really what's pushing that. This deck does play 3 of them. That pretty much makes up for half the price of the deck as is. You can always cut one to save a little bit of money and get closer to that $100 range. But again, overall, aside from that, everything in here is pretty reasonable. So we'll go ahead and showcase the deck profile in the main and extra, and then we'll go from there. Okay, starting with the main deck, we have the newly released from Cyberstorm Access Wannabe. This card is amazing. If you've not used this or played with it, it's a level 2, which helps the deck as a good normal summon to make your Xyz plays. Also during the end phase, so either end phase, you ditch it from your hand. Look at the cards from the top of your deck equal to the unused spell or trap zones your opponent has. Typically, you're doing anywhere from 3 to 5, and if there's a trap among one of those, you can set it. So what was really good back in Pearly format was you would end phase discard this, excavate something like Destructive Daruma Cannon, and then on your draw phase you can shotgun that. It would flip everything down. Because Noir is unaffected, it would then force the player to send the Noir, essentially outing the whole board. Really cool. Still something niche as well that might still be good right now. I still do like it. Wannabe is an amazing card. Again, in line with that, the Literal King, 3 Backjack, the main excavator for any normal type trap deck. This card, if it's sent to grave, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put them back in any order, and then quick effect during your opponent's turn, you banish it, excavate the top card. If it's a trap, you can set it and use it that turn. So the whole name of the game here is just utilizing as much traps as you can. The last card here is 1 Gamma Seal. Unfortunately, this card is also a little bit more expensive right now. This could be any kaiju, but because, again, this is Paleozoic and you play cards like Totally Awesome and stuff like that in your extra, this is how you recycle it. So the Gamma Seal is technically the optimal kaiju. I only do play 1 because you can mill it, like I said, and add it back, but that's truly it for the monsters. 6 of them are trap searchers, and 1 is just a guaranteed in out to random kind of non-targetable, non-destructible, towers type monsters. So that's it for the monsters. The rest of the deck is truly traps. We're not on prosperity, duality, extrav, none of that. I truly like having just extra traps and more names, just overall on how this deck plays. It's similar to Labyrinth, but different if you've ever played this type of a variant. But starting with the Paleos, we play 3 Morella. You are playing quite a lot. These are really how the deck plays. You want to have 3 of these or more, ideally, on your field because they're unaffected. This is what you use to Xyz and push for game and that kind of stuff. This one, they all have the same effect. If a trap is activated, you can chain their grave effect, special summon them back to the field as long as the trap is the last thing on the chain. If they change something else, you can't do that because these are when effects. But the Morella is a Foolish Burial for any trap, which is really, really important for the deck. Leonchoila, probably one of the best trap cards and utility cards you have. This takes any banished card and returns it to the grave. This is one of the few cards in existence currently in the game that still can put back face down banished cards to the grave. So again, you're not really worried about any type of removal, even with Kashtira still lingering in the format. After that, 3 Book of Moon. This is obviously, again, still important. 1, because of cash, and just also stops stuff going first and can help follow up and bait out negates going second. And then 3 Olenoides. This is our MST of the deck. And then rounding it out, we have 2 Dinomischus. You don't always have cards in your hand, but it's still a really great piece of spot removal, non-destructive removal. So you want it to be able to banish things. And this gets you to, I believe, 14 Paleo names. That's that 90-ish% chance of seeing at least 1 Paleo name going first in that 5-card hand. So you just want names in this deck. The rest of the deck is all other types of traps that help either trigger or get Paleos in the grave and facilitate a lot of that. So starting off, we have 3 Needlebug Nest. If you're unfamiliar with really how this deck plays, I'll link a video. It's a little bit older, but it's a Master Duel video that shows a lot of replays of how this functions. It's very user-friendly, very viewer-friendly, I should say, to kind of get an idea of how this deck plays. And outside of the frog package, not much has really changed, and you'll get the general idea. But this just mills the top 5 cards from your deck to your grave. So you're basically triggering a Paleo, dumping more stuff to get more fodder to continue playing. After that, 3 Destruction of Destiny, another very old card. Again, I liked cards that continued to mill that were specifically traps. That's why you're not seeing Kelbeck and a Gito and the small like tier package. You're not doing any of that. You don't need to. I would rather have something that mills but still triggers my Paleos and Grave. That's why we're maxing out on the trap names. 3 Destruction of Destiny, you mill 3, and for each spell trap milled, you take 1,000. Not really mattering at that point. 3 Common Charity. Yes, this was a card before the format and the challenge existed around Common Charity. You draw 2 cards and then you can banish a normal monster from your hand. If you don't have that, you discard your entire hand. That does not matter in this deck because you typically want to discard certain things like Rise to Full Height, like the Paleos, like Backjack, to get them all to trigger. It's just another card that basically says mill 2. This is probably the only flex spot trap I have in here, Fiend Griefing. In reality, this could also be Lost Wind if you have a couple extra bucks you want to throw at it. I really like that card, and I think would probably be better given cash is still around. But you basically dump a Fiend and then shuffle a card in your opponent's grave back to their deck. So this really just kind of helps deal with grave stuff as well as sends Backjack to facilitate more traps. And then the OG Rise to Full Height. If you're really unfamiliar with this, this was very popular back around when Omega kind of first came out and that deck was a thing. Omega would return this. Basically, it has 2 effects. The first effect's not really relevant, but you activate it, target a monster, its defense is doubled for the turn, and then it becomes 0 permanently after that. So it's just another way to trigger regular Paleos in Grave. The second effect is what matters. You can quick effect, banish it from Grave, target a monster you control, they can only attack that monster. So if that monster leaves the field, they can't attack anything else. So this is how the deck plays. You're basically on your opponent's turn, spamming a bunch of Paleos, banishing Rise to Full Height to target 1 Paleo or 2 of them to target 2 different ones, preventing them from either attacking anything but one thing or attacking anything at all because you can use multiple. And then on your turn, you just Xyz like crazy, ZEUS clear their board. And that's the cool thing about the Paleos too, is even with ZEUS that I'll mention later, they're unaffected by monster effects, so you can ZEUS your opponent while keeping all of your stuff as well. So Rise to Full Height is truly how the deck plays, and they use cards like Leon Choila to kind of recycle it. After that, the 3 Destructive Daruma Cannon. This is probably one of the biggest bumps this type of a deck has gotten in a long time. It clears boards. It makes you be able to play on your turn. You don't have to worry about playing through negates. It forces negates. It just was pretty much everything that you need. Really, really powerful. And then similar to, I think, the current mindset with Labyrinth and other normal trap decks, is 1 trap trick is sufficient. Just boosting the count of all of your 3-ofs, 2-ofs by 1 to just be able to play trap trick as an extra. You don't want to see multiple. So that's it for the main deck. A clean 40 cards. Craziest monkey flip deck. I really like it because it's a bit more interactive than other just, flip Tikaboo pass type decks. So really cool. But I'll talk a bit about the extra deck. Like I said, this deck revolves around making ZEUS. This is the win condition of the deck, unfortunately. Again, like I said, if you can probably get away with 1 less ZEUS given the hits to Diablosis and Unicorn. But ultimately, in a perfect world, you would want to play 3 for a deck like this, but you could get away with 2. Just know that if you're looking to save some money, you can cut 1, but I wouldn't play any less than 2. Going in line with that, 1 Downerd, of course, and then starting off with the Paleo Xyz, we have 3 Opabinia. This is probably one of the most important ones that you're going to make. Just like the Paleo Traps, the Xyz are all unaffected by monster effects, so if you ZEUS, you can keep these on the field. This has an effect where you can detach and add any Paleo Trap from your deck to your hand, as well as the continuous effect that you can use Paleo Traps from your hand whenever you want. So this is just a house in and of itself. After that, 2 Anomalocaris. This is kind of like a Trident with a lot more work. Takes 3 level 2s, can quick effect detach to pop a card on the field. And then if a trap card goes to grave, you can excavate a card. If it's a trap, you can add it to your hand. So again, just kind of like a free draw there. Another card that you can get away with bumping up a little bit more, again, as a substitute for ZEUS, or in addition to it, that I really like, is Herald of the Pure Light. This basically detaches a card, takes a card, and then adds it back to your hand, and then you go ahead and then take a card from your hand, and I believe you either shuffle it back into your deck. Yep, but the ruling interaction on this is really nice. If the card does not go back into your hand, then you don't have to shuffle the extra card from your hand into the deck, and you can still activate it with no cards in your hand. So what that means is, like, you can summon this, detach, shuffle back a ZEUS. If you don't have a hand or you want to set everything first so you don't lose any cards in hand, you don't have to. Ram in with this and then remake another ZEUS. So it's a really, really cool card for the deck. After that, Cat Shark. In a perfect world, this would probably be Sky Cavalry. I can't find mine laying around. You just want at least one rank 2 that can't die by battle so you can crash and get the 4 material ZEUS play going. In line with that, I think this deck utilizes Pearly Plump very, very well. Being able to just have this again as another 1-card format ZEUS because it can attach 2 spell traps from the grave is really nice. Of course, the one toad, the Paleos are still Aquas. You still have the ability to make this or use it as a way to recycle Gamma Seal. And then just 1 Link Karibo. I like this a little bit better than Anima right now, just for the use of Backjack in case you hard open it. So that is the main deck. That is the extra deck. That is Rise to Full Height Paleo. Quite a throwback if you're familiar with those decks. I really like it. Definitely a cool little budget deck if you have the ZEUSes already lying around. Everything else is pretty dirt cheap, and even then, just getting away with 2 ZEUS makes this a little bit more bearable. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Later.